Hello, I'm Bailey Leisure, and this is my 2018 Major League Baseball postseason divisional round recap, as well as my predictions for the league championship series. So starting off in the American League, the Red Sox versus the Yankees. This was a big series, obviously. First time these two teams had faced each other since the ALCS back in 2004, where the Red Sox came back down from 3-0 to beat the Yankees and break their 86-year World Series drought. This was pretty much the the Red Sox were pretty much the better team. This was a decently, it was kind of, the only game in this series where it felt really close was game 4. But the Red Sox pretty much had this series. They just looked like the better team. Their hitters were better. Mookie Betts, Brock Hall, their pitching staff was better than the Yankees. The Red Sox bullpen looked a little bit better. I think with the Yankees, the thing that kept them in the series was, Gary Sanchez. He had a couple big hits. Probably one of the most disappointing players for the Yankees in the series was Giancarlo Stanton. And just the Red Sox, they just were too much for the Yankees as they won in 4 games. Moving on to the other series, the Astros versus the Indians. This pretty much was all Astros. I mean, the Indians won a pretty weak division, and it pretty much showed once they entered the playoffs. The Astros looked like the better team. Justin Verlander had a great start in Game 1, as did Garrett Cole. Dallas Keuchel not so much in Game 3, but the hitting just, was just too much against the Indians. I mean, just Jose Altuve, I think probably the MVP of the series, in my opinion, was Alex Bregman. Carlos Correa even got on the action. George Springer had a couple home runs, and I think that was pretty much the difference in the series, was just the hitters were too much for the Indians pitching, as the Astros were able to win in 3 games. Moving on to the National League, the Brewers versus the Rockies. Like the Indians-Astros series, the Brewers were just too much. It wasn't even they had a huge offensive presence in the series. Just the Rockies were just shut down. Those top Rocky hitters were just shut down by Brewers pitching, especially the bullpen. Corey Knebel, Jeffries for the Brewers, as well as Josh Hader. That was just the big difference. And in the last 2 games, the Rockies were shut out in the series, and the Brewers were able to win in Colorado in 3 games. And then the Dodgers, just the Braves. The Dodgers, they shut out the Braves in the first 2 games. The Braves were able to come back in Game 3 and were able to extend it for a 4th game. But that Game 4, I think probably the most pivotal moment in that game was the Braves, having bases loaded. I think they were up by a run and not getting anything with 1 out, and the Dodgers came back thanks to a pinch hit 2-run RBI by David Freese. Manny Machado was able to get a big home run, extending their lead to 4, and they were able to win that game, decisive Game 4, 6-2. I think the big thing in this series was the first 2 games, Hyun-Joo Ryu and Clayton Kershaw's performances. Manny Machado, as well as Justin Turner, and their big hitters. David Freese, obviously that huge 2 RBI single in Game 4, the pinch hit single he had. And that was just the big difference in this game, and just the Dodgers just looked more experienced than the Braves, and they were able to win in 4 games. So now moving on to the championship series, starting out in the American League, the Red Sox versus the Astros. The Red Sox, top team in baseball this year in the regular season, against the defending World Series champions. I mean, I think both these lineups are pretty stacked, and I think the pitching staffs are everything's pretty stacked in this series for each of them, and it's pretty evenly matchup if you ask me. As far as I'm concerned, this is going to be a very close series, and I think this series is going to go very deep. It's going to be back and forth. As far as the hitting is concerned, I think the Astros might have a little bit, even though it's close, I would give the Astros the hitting, even though I'd give the Red Sox the bullpen pitching. I think the starting pitching for both teams is pretty on par. I think the big key players in this series for the Red Sox, one will be Mookie Betts, and for the Astros, I think actually it will not be George Springer. I think it will be Alex Bregman. I think those are going to be the 2 top players, and if they're hitting, getting big hits, whoever gets the most, I think will win. I think this is pretty evenly close, but I think that the Astros are just a little bit more complete than the Red Sox, even though they're evenly matched up. And I'm going to go with the Astros to win this series in 7 games. And then in the National League Championship Series, the Brewers versus the Dodgers. The Dodgers trying to get back to the World Series, trying to redeem themselves from just missing out last year in 7 games. The Brewers trying to get to their first World Series as a National League team. The only time they were able to get to the World Series was in 1992 when they were in the American League, and they lost that series in 7 games to the St. Louis Cardinals. I think in my opinion, I think the big factor in this series will be starting pitching. I would probably give it to the Dodgers just a little bit over the Brewers, probably just because of Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw. I think those are going to be the big pitchers, and this is really another test for Clayton Kershaw if he can get over the hump and erase his playoff disappointments. I think the big factor for the Brewers though is that right now they're currently the last team in the National League, and I think in baseball right now that's remaining in the postseason. I think they have the best bullpen. Like I said before, Corey Knebel, Josh Hader, Jeffries. All those guys I think are going to be the big factor. And if they put up, they shut things down, and it's going to be a big test for them, especially against that Dodgers lineup. I think, I'm going to go. This is even with the Dodgers as the second seed, they're probably the favorites, but I'm going to go with the Brewers. Christian Yelich, I think, is going to be a big factor in this series. And I just, I think that bullpen's going to really is going to be a big difference in this series. So I'm going to go with the Brewers. And that's it for my video. As always, click like on the video, subscribe if you like the content on my channel, and leave your comments below in the comments section on what you thought of the MLB Divisional round here in this year's postseason, and what you think will happen in the American League and National League Championship Series. If you're a fan of my football videos, yesterday I just released a video on my Week 6 NFL picks, as well as on Wednesday I did a Week 5 recap. So the links of those videos are in the description below. As always, follow me on Twitter at BaileyLager96. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you all later.